Hey everyone, this is Derek from 11 After 9, my YouTube channel that is devoted to everything Porsche. But today's video is a very exciting one because what I'm doing is going in depth on my new to me Porsche 981 Boxster. This is a very exciting car to me because it's an experiment of sorts. Everyone always says you need the S, you got to get the S, and I wanted to try to get the base. I wanted to find out where is the love for the base model Boxster. And even though I'm early on my experiment, I think I found it. But what I really want to talk about is my 981. And at the end of this video, I'm going to share my early verdict on what I think might make a 981 a good choice when you compare it to an S. So very quickly, talking about my history with the Boxsters, I have owned a few of the earlier Boxsters from the early 2000s, 2005, 2006. Both of them actually were S's. Loved them both. Loved the open air driving that they provide with plenty of punch and kind of an upper scale cabin. And then I had a 991.1, so that early teens 911 that I enjoyed last year. It was also a convertible. And really got me kind of hooked for kind of this newer generation of Porsche in terms of fit and finish and driving refinement. But what I wanted to see was, is it possible to get a Boxster of the same generation, same fit and finish, same quality, same driving dynamics, but for half the price of a 911? And can you enjoy it every day? And so what I did is I went on a search for a 981 with a 2.7 liter motor. It's the smaller motor, not the S. Puts out about 265 horsepower, just about 200 pound-feet of torque, I think 206. And but it's light, 2,900 pounds. Gets great gas mileage if you care about that. But since I'm always really heavy in the throttle, that never really entered into the equation for me. Why didn't I look at an early Boxster, a 986, because I do have a few friends that drive the base 986 Boxster and absolutely love it because of the chassis control. I'll be honest, I just didn't want to go down the road of worrying about some of the things that are associated with those motors. I know that they're overblown, but I really wanted something that was a little bit more modern with a direct fuel injected engine that at least if it passed a PPI, I'd be in great shape. And so this time around, I went with a 981. I'm generally pretty open to different colors. I really do love some of the brighter colors. The Guards reds, some of the blues are really fantastic. Though I do have to say on the Porsche Boxster and Cayman of this generation, white looks pretty sick. But outside of color, I really wanted to try to find a car that had lower miles and was outfitted with a manual transmission. I really love the 6-speed that they have in this generation. And really a must was what they call PSE, or Porsche Sport exhaust. I found that with my 911 of the same generation, it was a must because the car was really just too quiet without it. The PSE really kind of woke it up and really had the car sound like I think a Porsche should. So let's just talk about the car's appearance for a moment. Folks, I just think this is one of the most beautiful cars maybe I've ever owned. Outside of some of the classic 911s that I've been lucky enough to have in my garage, this is absolutely breathtaking. I think the Guards red is a beautiful color for the body. I think the black rims, especially with the S rims, slightly larger sized, and the black really contrasts the deep red of the Guards. And not having the painted rollover hoops behind the driver's seat and the passenger seat, I think is actually a bonus. God, I mean, this car is absolutely gorgeous when it's sitting still with the top up or the top down. I think with the top down, it looks like a not only a proper sports car, but I've had people, even just in my short ownership so far, ask me if it's a Ferrari, ask me if it's a McLaren, ask me if it's a Lotus. So, some people might say that, well, is that really Porsche's brand identity if no one really knows what it is? But I'd say that someone who might not know cars thinks that that is a sports car and maybe even a supercar. And when you're talking about cars that might be in the value range of $30,000 to $40,000 right now, I mean, that's just from an aesthetic standpoint, something you can't really touch for the money. And so I think it's home run, even sitting on the lift in my garage. I can't stop looking at it. And so I think that Porsche did a fantastic job. Talking about the interior quality, it's really at the same level as my 911 was. I haven't really noticed any difference. The dash and the steering wheel covers, I don't have the leather package extended that some people do get, which is fine. I mean, it's soft touch plastic. It's really high quality. The vents move with no cheapiness. The buttons you press, They feel solid. The previous owner to my car did replace the PCM, or the nav screen, with an aftermarket, which normally I'm not a big fan of, but I am getting one over a little bit because I do love the Apple CarPlay. It's something that normally I just run off my phone. I'd have it in an attachment on one of the vents. And so it is kind of nice to be able to look down and have that and have the phone kind of tucked away. So I can't say that that's a terrible thing, but I just don't think it looks quite right. But it's just something I'm going to get used to. The seats have held up wonderfully. The car has 44,000 miles. The seats look brand new. The interior was well taken care of. Honestly, the car shows beautifully. One of my favorite things about the car is the shifter action. When you're driving it, the click click of moving the shifter is so mechanical. Some of the G50 cars, some of the early to mid 2000 cars feels like a little mushy. I mean, you still know there's a connection there, but I was actually really surprised when I got in this car. Even comparing it to my 911 of the same year, I feel like this 6-speed versus the 7-speed that car had, the 6-speed just feels so much more immersive. When you move the shifter from gear to gear, you can hear it in the tunnel clicking and clacking as it's attached to the transmission, which I think is absolutely fantastic. It's exactly what you expect from a Porsche. It really adds to kind of the overall theater of the car. I do want to touch on steering very briefly because I know that a lot of people, when they're looking at this generation, the 981 generation of the Boxsters, talk about the electric steering and how it is dead and how Porsche lost its way because it gave up the hydraulic steering. I mean, listen, if you're going to be in this vintage of cars, it's going to be an electric mechanical steering, and Porsche does it the best. Is it muted compared to some of the cars that I've owned in the early to late 2000s? Absolutely. But it is precise. You still feel a level of road feedback that actually I wasn't expecting to get, because compared to my 2013 Cayenne, which I think the steering feels very dead, this feels like sports car steering. And so while you might lose a little bit in terms of the old hydraulic feel, it is absolutely not a reason to not look at this car. I mentioned the sport exhaust, and I do want to touch on that again. I'm going to insert a clip here of the sport exhaust off and on startup, and a couple blips of the throttle. I have to say, even with it off, it sounds good. But with it on, it sounds ridiculous. You know, the only thing I will say is when you're on the road, and you'll hear this when I play a video at the end of this kind of chat, is that it does burble a little too much. And over time, it does feel a little boy racer every time you come off the throttle. And so that's something that I'm going to watch over time and see if it kind of annoys me. But so far, it definitely doesn't. And again, it kind of adds to the overall experience of the car. I will say this, base versus S. Where I initially was a little worried when I got the car is in second gear, because the gears are relatively long. I did feel like it didn't have a ton of pep kind of between the 2000 to 4000 RPM range. And I mentioned this on the podcast with Will, and I'll say it again. At first, I was a little like, oh man, if it only had like another 40 or 50 horsepower, and you know, the S has that. And what I have come to understand is that you actually have to drive this car differently. You have to keep it much higher in the rev range. You have to keep it up above 4,500 RPM, and feel free to take it all the way to 7,000 RPM. I think that when you do that, and the car very happily lives in those upper rev ranges, the sound is glorious. The car is extremely responsive. It's extremely peppy, and it's extremely fast. I would say quick and fast. I wouldn't say blistering speed by any means. But in New Hampshire, where I live, or if you live in a part of the country where you don't have these long stretches of road that you just want to do these pulls, this is the ultimate backroads car. And I want you guys to really hear me on this, that I had a blast making this video because it is so capable in as far as the chassis goes. The car can do so much more than you can ask for it. But because it doesn't have this crazy power, you can use so much more of the engine and you can get so much more of that theater and that experience from hearing it with the top down without worrying about losing your license. Second, third gear, you're still going monstrously quick if you want to be, but you can really play with it. And I feel like it's kind of more of an instrument. Initially, I might have been a little disappointed not thinking that this doesn't have that S grunt, or especially coming out of my 991 from last year, it doesn't have that same type of punch. It's a different car. And I think, yes, it's a great entry level Boxster, but I kind of think that this is also an amazing car for someone who's had a lot of Porsches and they've experienced some of the higher horsepower stuff, maybe some of the track stuff, some of the older stuff. This is an amazing everyday sports car. And it doesn't pretend to be anything more than that. And I think that's actually a really fantastic thing. With that, still early on in my ownership journey, I am going to leave you folks with a little bit of sound, and you can get a sense of driving through some early spring New Hampshire roads and get a feel of the car. I hope if you would all do me a favor, once again, please subscribe to my channel. I am really looking forward to doing more on the Boxster, doing a lot of stuff on my older 911, some Cayenne work, and I'm going to be doing a lot of test drives at the local Porsche dealer, Porsche of Nashua. They're a fantastic partner. And also, I'm going to be doing maybe a couple mods to this. Some stuff that might be tasteful, but it would be interesting because you might find yourself in the same boat. And I'd love to share it with you. So thank you again. Welcome to 11 After 9. I'm so glad to have you.